Alright, we're going to try something new today. I want to do this fleece blanket, but since I have so much of the print, so much more of the print than I do of the solid, and I don't want to cut it down to the size of the solid because I feel like it would just make this blanket smaller and it's already just a throw size. I want to make this as big as I can, so I'm going to do this self-binding quilt technique where I've seen this with flannel. We're going to try it with fleece. But basically you fold your two pieces in the middle, you find your center point, and then you pin them all along, and you're going to have leftovers of equal amounts on both sides. Okay, you're going to then you're going to sew that. You're also going to give it about a ½ inch of a margin, and when you come to the corner, don't sew off, come up to the corner. You're also going to do the same thing on the other four sides, where you're going to find the side here, find this middle, match them up, pin them down, and then it'll look kind of funny for a minute, but it will all work out in the end, and I'll show you how to do this. Oh, by the way, right side fabric, right sides are together. Let's see what happens next. To do this, we're going to do the self-binding quilt option. I've seen this with flannel. I'm going to try it with fleece. And so what you do is you take your two pieces of fleece, put the right side together, and it's all about texture. So you have to see what side seems to be the outside for you. And then you're going to fold it in half and find the very center. And we're doing the best we can with what I have to work with. So I hope this makes sense. And all I'm doing is sticking a pin right at that center fold. Now I'm going to take the other fabric and do the same to it. And what it is the print fabric is actually bigger. The piece is bigger than the solid here. Excuse me. And I didn't want to cut the print down to the size of the solid because I felt like it would make it quite a bit smaller, and in general when you're using fleece you have a large seam allowance, and I just felt like I would be losing a lot of real estate with the blanket to do it that way. So I'm going to try the self-binding method and see if I can keep the blanket bigger. So what you do is you find the middle of both of those, you pin it, and then you put the smaller size or smaller fabric on top, and then you just go along and you match up your ends. Now you're going to find when you come down to the end you have not a lot, but you have extra. That's okay. That's why we're doing this, is because one piece is bigger than the other. So the smaller piece, keep that on top. And the funny thing is out of all the pins I have access to, I'm using my numbered pins right now. But they are still great because they're a nice, thick, sturdy pin. It's just, didn't think I would be sewing with these because they're great for marking and keeping my rows straight with my quilting. But it works great. So I have gone through and I've cut the salvage off of this. You don't have to because it's not going to fray, but I felt that there was a little bit of a curl to it, and I want this to lay flat and feel good. And it's just an extra step that I took to trim down the salvage off of it. So my edges here are kind of rough, but it doesn't matter because we're going to go in like a ½ inch, maybe even an inch, minimum of a ½ inch with our seam allowance, and it's really not going to matter. That's going to get all sucked up, but I won't have that curly salvage that was there a minute ago. Alright, so now I have done this. What we're going to do is whatever width you decide to do for your seam, whether it be ½ inch or an inch, you're going to start that far in from the corner because you're going to have to go down here, and you're going to sew down here. But you're also going to, when you get down to this side, need this to match up. This will make so much sense when we're done. You just have to bear with me through this part of it. And again, we're going to find the centers of each of these. so now that I've pinned the center, we're going to line them up, keeping the smaller piece on top, and then you start to pin it. And you go out as far as you can. And you are going to have extra at the end. Now I've already pinned one side ahead of time. So you'll notice you have this funny floppy edge. Well, when we turn it inside out, it's going to actually make a mitered corner, and I'm going to show you how that works, but it's okay. But that's also why we need to make sure we do not sew off of the corner. So up to the corner, leaving the same space on both sides of whatever your seam allowance is, and then tack it, pick up the other end, and start over. So you are going to have some thread breaks on this first one. Sorry, not the first one, but the first pass. And then we're going to turn it inside out, and it's going to be magical. Now, one thing before I forget, we are going to turn it inside out because we have right sides together, which means we need to leave an escape route. We need a hole to get out. And so, best thing that I do to help me remember what that is I'll take my binder clips, or I'll take some extra pins and I'll mark it a little bit differently than, let's see what that's like, than the rest of the pins. That way I know that, okay, this is where I saved for me to turn this inside out. And honestly, I like to do it kind of off center, but in the on one of the side seams. I don't go too close to the corner. You definitely want to let that be enclosed this way. Okay, so again, we matched up our centers, and now pinning it. You are going to need your walking foot with this project, because this is thick, and I'm pinning far enough back that if I choose to leave the pin in it when I run it through the machine, because this will shift a little bit, I'll have some room. Okay, so we're coming up on this corner again. So remember, when you come up here, you are going to have extra. This was not as centered as I thought it would be. Let's see what's going on over there. Nope. That's right. That's right. I'm making it so it's not an even miter. Normally you'll want to make it like, I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 8 inches all the way around bigger. I am choosing to see how far I can go with this fabric. Alright, so again, I've got to leave myself a way to turn this inside out, and I think I'm gonna maybe do it right here. Maybe it's a hole big enough to get that through there, but without stretching it out. That's actually not that big of a hole. I may find I need to make it a little bigger. Ooh. See how it goes when I get to it. Okay, and up here to the corner, and you have this funny floppy corner that just looks funny, and it is okay. Okay, let's go to the machine. is that I did not have my centerpiece square or centered, but you see how this is making a binding? It's a self-binding quilt, literally. It will take the back, roll around to the front, and that is the binding. We're going to do some top stitching, but we have to figure out how to do the corners now. So typically you would want to have your both pieces of your fabric relative to each other in size, and like I was mentioning before, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 inches different between the two in diameter. So I did not do that with this one, and I knew I would have a thin side and a thick side, and I just thought it'd be fun to, you know, see how this works, and you guys can come along the journey with me. And but what I've done is I've sewn each side, and now I've gone around the and turned everything inside out, pulling these corners out. So what we're, in an ideal world, we're going to sew it on a corner and an angle and then cut that off, and that'll be on the inside. But I need to see where that will go. It's just a little extra work for me. But these are all going to get turned in for a minute. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up on my design wall. I won't take the camera, and get it as flat as I can and find the center of the quilt, both, you know, where everything is centered as much as it can, and then put a pin in it, and then I'll be back. So it is a very small border on one side, and it's going to be quite wide on the other side. Again, I wanted this blanket to be as big as I could get it, and I didn't like the idea of cutting off these inches just to have a uniform look, because I think it will be symmetrical. Both sides will be the same, and it will look good. So what I'm doing now is I'm pinning right along the, no, I don't want to do that just yet. We still aren't done with the corners. Okay. So really what's going to happen is we're going to have a mitered corner. Ooh, I have a better idea. Normally it's mitered, but there's really no point because there's not much room here. I think I can do that. I like it. Alright, like I said, I'm kind of making this up as I go. I'm going to just come straight across like that, and then maybe miter the corner over here, because there's just a lot of bulk we don't need. And I can do this on top with the top stitch. Normally you would miter it on the inside, but there's just not much in there to miter. I'm trying to figure out how I want to cut this. I'm always doing things my own way, I guess. Let's see. What do I want to part with? I think it's safe to say this can go. And this can go. Let's see. It's still... Now remember, fleece will not fray. So I think I'm going to end up with a little bit of a rough edge right here. Otherwise I would have a lot of bulk. I don't want that. And it's going to be okay. I will go over it with with the sewing machine, but I actually want it to be like this. This is very different than the traditional no or self-binding quilt, just because I'm having to deal with these uneven sides. What I'm doing now is I'm pinning, and you can feel there's that fabric that I was sewing, and I want it to be down versus up. And what I'm going to do is a top stitch right along here. But right now I want to make sure that this is not moving, that it's where I need it to be, and that I have the bulk where I need it to be too. Because you don't want it to go up in their seam, because when you go to do your top stitch on top of it, it defeats the purpose if you can't find it, if you can't get to it. Let's see here. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could do a straight stitch, like stitch in the ditch. You can do something just off the side. I don't know if I'm going to do it on this because it's a bit thick to get an even stitch, but you can do like a serpentine stitch. I like that on the flannel a lot. I think I'm just going to do a straight stitch and catch it down below, and possibly maybe do two. I think that looks cool to have two. I think right now that's what I'm liking, is to do two, one on each side of that. So really what I'm doing here is I'm finding where that was, that height, and I'm cutting this across because I've decided I want to go straight. And these scissors evidently are getting dull, and that's new. So now I'm going to cut that whole triangle out. Don't need it. And then this is where we need to get rid of some bulk, get rid of some of this. And I am going to stitch right across. It's a little bit different than what you normally see, and I am a-okay with that. How did I do that corner? I went in a little closer. Perfect. That works. That works really well. It's very different. But you know what? I do like to make unique, one-of-a-kind handcrafted items. So, there you go. Let's do this side. That is not going down. I really want it to be. Oh, there we go. We're okay. If you want to watch creativity in progress, that would be me. I kind of like to do my own thing, and that's exactly what has just happened with this. This is way easier than I thought it would be with these funky corners. I'm very pleased. And when I get to that, I will deal with it. So there's really not much of a border. I think it's going to look cool. Again, why be normal? I want to make sure it's flat, not rolling, which is what that was trying to do. And the corners are a little different, but in general the same. So what I'm doing is I want to I'm going to stitch across here and then stitch across the end, but I don't want it to do this. So I do need it a little narrower. And I'm quite sad about these scissors. I'm going to have to switch. Ooh, I don't like what I just did. Ha! Then we're going to fix it. There. I'm going to tack all that down, and I'm going to give myself some pins down here to remind me that I got a little crazy with the scissors, and I might need to spend some extra time making sure it's reinforced. I'm all about not falling apart. Okay. And because this seems to have a mind of its own, I want to keep pinning it. Alright. On to the side. All that fabric is up there. I wanted it down. Let's see. Actually, if I'm going to do 2 stitches, 1 on each side, it's going to catch it no matter what. We are okay, but I'm going to pin it where that bulk is. Do you ever get a song stuck in your head and it just is on repeat? That would be me today. Well, okay, most days. But today, the song I have stuck in my head is A Very Merry Young Birthday to You. Alice in Wonderland. Don't know why, don't know how, but that's the song in my head. Yourself. Okay, now here's that hole. This is where we turn things inside out. You're not even going to know it when we're done because we're going to zip right on top of it. It will be perfect when we're done. Making sure everything is flat like I want it. This has got a little not flat going on. Let's see. And because I want to keep track of this, to make sure I know where this is, because it's really easy just to disappear, I'm just putting something there to help me stop and go, what is that? Oh yeah, that's the opening. Actually, I might do it this way because that's different than everything else I've been doing. I don't think I like the way this corner's turning out. This is where you just have to play with it when you have to do something like what I'm doing. Leave that a little thicker. Again, I'm just gonna seal that off. So it will not fray, and I don't want the bulk, so it's going to be just fine. And I'm feeling like I want extra pins. So go with your feelings. I have all kinds of words of wisdom. I'm going to start by doing the width of the foot, going on this side and go all the way around the blanket, coming back over here up to the corner on all 4 corners, and then foot width on the other side. And it's going to look real cool and make sure it catches everything. everywhere. We are done with the blanket. This is what it looks like. So you see the double stitching goes around, and I like this. Kind of makes me think of like a bed blanket or a sheet where it has that upper cuff, except it's on both sides. But it looks good. Looks really good. Our finished size of this blanket is 54 by 58, so it's a nice throw size, and I got it as big as I could. And this is going to be going to Kentucky for the tornado victims.